All right. This is Django, and I'm joined here by, what do you like to go by, man?
Yeah, you can. I think everyone knows me by Windhustler or Giuseppe de Lazara. So that's basically my name and my handle on Twitter.
Oh, man, that name flows so well. It's like the prettiest sounding name.
Yeah, which one is better, like Giuseppe de Lazara or Windhustler?
Yeah, Windhustler is great. That's so for people tuning into this podcast episode, Windhustler is someone who audited our GasBot V2 contract. So he got in touch. We got in touch together before we started the audit, and he did a really awesome job. So now we brought him onto the podcast to talk to him about his experience with auditing, talk about DeFi, just to chat. So I guess we'll start off by asking you, Windhustler, for an introduction about yourself. Tell us how you got into crypto, auditing, anything you want to talk about.
Yeah, sure. So I'll kind of go a bit in the past. I'm actually a petroleum engineer by profession. So I study like petroleum engineering, and I graduated from college in 2015. And for the first few years after I graduated, I was working as a petroleum engineer in this big corporation. And kind of at one point, I got this like how would you call it, like quarter life crisis. It's not like a middle life crisis, but I was having these second thoughts. What should I do for the rest of my life? Do I want to continue being like petroleum engineer? I didn't like some aspects of that job, so I just decided. At the time, I was looking at coding, at programming, and I just kind of decided to teach myself how to code, and I really liked it. I kind of always liked engineering and solving things, fixing things. So I decided to fully like abandon my profession and become a software developer. So this is like 2018, around 5-6 years ago. Since then, I've kind of also tried a lot of things. So first, I started as an Android application developer. Then I kind of switched to the more classical backend engineering with Java. I also kind of tried full stack, so also doing the backend and the front end part. But I didn't kind of find this that interesting. But in 2021, I've got my first job as a blockchain developer in a small startup here in Croatia. And kind of as soon as I started doing Solidity, I immediately liked it. What I kind of liked is that Solidity, programs are kind of not bloated. You don't have these like big frameworks like Spring with Java. You just have like small piece of code and needs to work like perfectly. So you don't have too much code, but you need to figure out all of the minor details. You write kind of more tests than you write code. So I just kind of like this part. Also, obviously, the crypto industry is amazing. There's always something happening, always a new exploit, always something. It's just like more fun than doing some like corporate job. So I've spent like more than 2 years just focusing on Solidity development, and as I said, I kind of I always liked digging deep into a subject, figuring out all the ins and outs of each function, each external integration. So actually last year in July, I kind of decided to go full into security research or auditing, and that's basically where I'm at now. So I'm just like a solo security researcher. I work with like clients. I also do bug bounties and competitive audits. So I kind of do a bit of everything. That's this is like a short introduction. Sorry if I went off tangent, but
No, that's great. That's great, man. Just remembered that our backgrounds are so similar. I also studied as a petroleum engineer here in the U.S., and I only did it for a year. So yeah, we both didn't last too long in that industry. It's funny. I went into it because my family was all petroleum engineers, and then a year into it, actually, when I was still in college, I'm like, this is not for me. But it does give you a really nice jumping off point into software development or just anything where you need to apply your brain. So very thankful for the schooling I had there. It's really interesting to hear that you jumped into software development and then into crypto, into Solidity development. How hard was it to find that first job? Because back in 2021, that was a really hot time. So I imagine there was a lot of funding going to everyone back then. Was it pretty easy for you to get that first job?
so I wasn't looking actually globally at that time. I would say I didn't know too much about Twitter. About I had an issue that I couldn't find some global community where it would for me be easy to kind of see how to get easily employed somewhere. What do you need to do? So I was mainly looking at the local market at that point, and that is basically Croatia. Croatia is a very small European country, only 4 million people. So there's actually only a few startups here that do blockchain in Croatia. So it was relatively hard, I would say. I had to go through a detailed interview process, and it wasn't like I was able to choose from 10 different job offers. But I managed to get employed there. I was at that first job. I was kind of mainly doing back-end engineering part of the blockchain stack, but I also had some. I also got in touch with Solidity there. So yeah.
Very cool, man. I also agree with what you said previously about writing something in Solidity and building a system in Solidity is such a closed loop kind of system. You have a contract that's purpose is to do X number of things, and as long as those things are done well in a secure way, you have it. You've done your work. You've tested it all. As opposed to every other aspect of software development, you have to just build this huge thing that has to do so many things. Solidity is, yeah, it's fun to write stuff in Solidity because you know exactly what you're trying to do. Yeah, very cool, man. And then you got into auditing just this last, well, it's been about a year now, huh? What was it like going from, go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a bit less than a year, but yeah, so sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, what was the transition from development into auditing? Because I think given a Solidity development background, that gives you such a nice base, such a nice foundation for not necessarily exploits and vulnerabilities per se. You just know how things work together and practically how the code should be working. So I jumped straight into auditing the moment I looked at Solidity. So I started from nothing and went to auditing, and you kind of have to develop a mindset of, what is this smart contract even trying to do? What is, what's going on the blockchain? It's kind of a dark forest. But yeah, tell me a little bit about how that transition was from development to auditing.
Yeah, I could imagine it's hard to immediately start with auditing because you're missing so many pieces of the puzzle. So you kind of have to work around this. For me, I would say it was rather easy. It wasn't even, I wouldn't even call it a transition, because when I was working, let's say in my previous on my previous job as a Solidity developer, a big portion of my work were these internal code reviews. So there were 3 of us on the Solidity code base, and each of us, let's say, develops a certain contract, and then we do detailed internal review, which lasts. It's not like your typical code review, which you would do in 1 or 2 hours. It rather like lasts a few days. So this is practically auditing. What's kind of different with auditing is you, as an auditor, it's natural to just go through a lot of reports, and then maybe on some instances rather try to pattern match a certain vulnerability than understand like everything. I didn't do this when I was a developer. So I when I was developer, I had like I would say less knowledge base of all the vulnerabilities, all the bugs, all the bug classes that are there. So maybe this would be something, yeah, that I kind of had to learn, and I'm working on it as an auditor.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
The other aspect.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The other aspects are similar. You write POCs, you write tests and some kind of scripts when you're a developer. When you're an auditor, you also need to write some POCs. So basically, you need to know how Foundry or Hardhat works. So these skills are transferable. Yeah, I would say it was for me so far. It was easy to transition. Also, I have this slight obsession that I need to make everything work perfectly, which people, when I was a developer, people were looking at me, strangely, that I was always like saying, "Oh no, we need more tests. We need to check more cases and so on." It was kind of looked upon, and as an auditor, this is like a beneficial trait. It's the thing that you need to do, basically.
Yeah, that's like a superpower when it comes to auditing. Yeah, I can imagine you're going to be extremely successful in your auditing ventures. Wow. In your opinion, from what you've like experienced between development and auditing, which one do you like better? From, I guess when I think of the comparison, as I've just gotten into development over the past year with GasBot, I compare it. I'll just start with this. I loved auditing for a while. It's such a rush. It's so funny to say this to other people who aren't auditors, how engaging auditing is, because you're just looking at code all day and hoping you find something. And it sounds boring to everyone else, but it's really, really engaging. It's like a rush, trying to find stuff. I'm more on the bug bounty side. So I'm just looking for like one live vulnerability that, can cause loss of funds. And yeah, I got to a point where I was too engaged by it. And I was like looking for bugs on my phone while I'm like in the bathroom and just like doing stuff I shouldn't be doing. It had a negative impact. And I know that's like my problem. That's not an auditing problem. That's like my problem. But I switched to development, and immediately I felt a little bit better because building gave me a sense of like steady, all right, I'm building something. This is good. I know what I need to do. As opposed to auditing, I guess not auditing per se, but bug hunting specifically is kind of like, you're like always wanting that one more kind of thing. It's almost like drugs. So yeah, I don't know. What do you feel like? What do you like better?
Yeah, I like your description. It does feel like cocaine sometimes, or some other drug. I would say, yeah, auditing has its downsides. Especially, I'm kind of really what's the right word? I admire people who do bug bounties, because it's really. I even find it a bit hard, because you have to maybe on some instances you would spend weeks looking at some code base and not finding anything. It can be frustrating. While with private audit or even a contest, you get more frequent this rush of dopamine when you find even some kind of a medium or some kind of high, but it's obviously it's not that strong as finding like a bug in a live project. So that's kind of generally on the auditing side. If I had to compare, as you said, like developing thing is more, you just have a steady progress. It's different, but I don't know. I never liked programming that much as I like auditing. It's just you have to design the system. You have to think how would you design something, write something. With auditing, you just get everything like immediately, and then you just need to think about it. That's it. You just need to read code and think about it. Also, for me, auditing, if you're working in a team, it's almost like talking with a friend about some issue, for 2 hours while you're trying to discuss the system, how certain things work. So I just like this. I just like this part. It's just kind of more satisfying than just building something.
Yeah,
so
that's a really
yeah.
good take. Yeah, I was having a conversation last week with a guy who was doing internal auditing at like a bank, so a traditional bank system. And it's comparable to auditing smart contracts, looking for the same kind of vulnerabilities. I mean, just vulnerabilities in general, but it's so much more boring in my opinion. It's very like, standard, it is a standard job and you're just looking for things. But auditing smart contracts, we have this weirdly awesome competitive landscape. You're either doing a competition, you're doing a bug bounty, with a leaderboard. There's leaderboards everywhere, even solo audits that you do with yourself or other independent researchers. It's kind of a competition too, because those findings will be public and people will kind of see your work and not judge, but more, you kind of understand the value you're bringing to your audits. And it's interesting. Everything's just so public in this space. Have you done many contests with Code Arena and Sherlock and Hats, and talk to us about what you're doing on the competitive side?
Yeah. So when I quit my kind of job last July, I've jumped on Code for Arena immediately, and I kind of had some ups and downs there. I think the most notable result was from Tapioca. So I managed to score third place there, and it was this massive. I think at that point it was the second largest prize pool in Code for Arena history, and kind of I would attribute this success on this contest to all my work experience prior to that, since I was with the startup I worked prior to that. We were building like a cross-chain application on top of layer 0, and Tapioca was also on top of layer 0. So yeah, it came really naturally. I was immediately aware of some potential issues, so I managed to score a lot of like solo highs on that contest. And funny thing, that was actually my first Code for Arena contest where I managed to score like really high. After that, I had like 3 or 4 contests where I was finding bugs, but some of them were duplicated, so I wasn't earning that much. But still, it was like great that I managed to find issues. This is I think always an issue with these competitive audits, is that sometimes you just get heavily duplicated, even if the issues you find are pretty critical, but you don't earn much. But again, it's at least it's a great like learning experience. So that's kind of my experience with code for Arena. I only did like one contest on Sherlock, and that was Alloy. Basically, this lending and borrowing platform built on top of Uni v3, and I actually did it with one of the lead senior Watsons. There, we managed to score first place. His name is his handle actually on Twitter is Hola Dai Voltfia. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. It's German, but yeah, we managed to score first place there, and he's a brilliant guy. I think one of the best auditors out there. So I would say my experience with Sherlock is just like kind of limited to that one instance, and I've been just doing hats finance contests, and I must say hats is totally different from anything else, because only the first, so none of the duplicates are awarded. Only the first valid submission is awarded, and there is I would say the power dynamics is more in the hands of the project. So you're just kind of the contest works in a way that you're just submitting issues, and then the sponsor is immediately looking at issues, and then he can immediately give like a rating, like I don't know, medium, high, or low, and also he can just put a label, one fix, and then you have to kind of argue. But it's I would say the power dynamic is more skewed towards the project than in these other platforms, where they just put up a prize pool, and this prize pool is going to be distributed no matter what, and the sponsor can only kind of acknowledge or comment issues, but the judge has the final say, and also obviously wardens can comment during the judging or QA process. But each of these platforms have their benefits. I also like kind of arguing with the projects and just making my case. Maybe sometimes it's not the highest, highest paying work. You can spend days, just arguing and trying to, argue for your issues. But yeah, it can be fun.
Yeah, that's an interesting rundown of the different platforms. And also congrats on your big earnings, especially with the Tapioca DAO. That's exciting, man. There's nothing better than like doing really well in a contest. I started Code Arena back in 2022, like the beginning. So it was early in Code Arena times. It was like kind of like the second wave of like early. Because the first year it had been, I think it started in early, like January 2021. And that was back when there was like, in the first couple of contests, there were like 8 people submitting. And then by the end of 2021, they were up to 50 or so. And when I started, most of the contests would receive 200 submissions or something. It was pretty small, and it was pretty easy to find solo stuff. And just even if it wasn't solo, you'd only have a few people duping you. Pretty common things that you could end up with really good payouts. I remember it's changed so much. Their entire process has changed so much for the better, in my opinion. Back then, you could just write down all the easy gas optimizations, very simply, and you could get $50 to $100 without knowing much. And it was pretty great. There was no sense of this report is bad and you get like a low quality grade and stuff like that. Yeah, and I've judged recent C4 contests, and I think some of my contests had 1,500 submissions or something. It was just really ridiculous to see how many people have joined for good reason. It's a really fun profession, and you can make a lot of money while being anonymous. There's no sense of you have to be somebody or KYC. You don't have to. Actually, another difference between Code Arena back then was that there was no sort of arguing. Because you bring up a really good point. Arguing is such an important part of today's competitive auditing landscape. I think Sherlock has it the worst with arguing. And maybe Hats. I have no experience, but it sounds like you have to do a lot of legwork to get your findings validated. But when I started with Code Arena, that was before the post-judging QA part. So you would submit your finding, and you would have no idea if it would be valid or invalid until the judging came out, the final judging, and it could have been judged wrong and incorrectly. So that was really interesting. There was just no like window into what was happening there. So yeah, things have changed for the better. I'm happy to hear that. And now there's such a wide landscape of different competitive platforms. I don't know anything about Codehawks. Have you done any Codehawks?
Not really. I know that they mostly target beginners. They have some like, I think it's called First Flight or something like this, where you collect some kind of points. But yeah, I have no idea what's their kind of competitive advantage. How are they different from the other platforms? Because if you look at it, each new platform introduces something new, just to try to solve some problem, or just introduce new stuff which maybe some people would find more interesting or more enjoyable to work.
Codehawks,
but yeah, man, I envy you.
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I envy you for joining Code for Arena in 2022. Yeah, I heard a lot of stories that it was quite different back then, and easier to score big. And yeah, these days it's you kind of also have to be lucky to pick the right contest. Obviously, picking any contest is a great, amazing learning experience, but yeah, you can pick a contest where there is like 2,000 submissions, and yeah, it's quite hard to get some kind of solo finding which will yield a decent amount of money. So
yeah, for sure, man. Have you tried your hand at any bug bounties yet, either through Immunify or through Code Arena's new Code Arena Blue?
So I actually did some bounties last year, and it was primarily through Immunify. I also, on some instances, tried reaching out like directly to projects that didn't have any kind of bug bounty setup. I even earned, I think, like $1,000 by doing this. I think Immunify is offers a good service. For each of my submissions, they were it was kind of resolved, not in a super short time, but it was resolved in a matter of like 20 days or a month. To be fair, most of my issues weren't like super critical. They are more like in some kind of medium or high range. So I didn't even expect projects to resolve them like in 2 days or something like this. But Immunify has been quite good. I also submitted one bug through Hats Finance, but that kind of dragged for several months. That wasn't the best experience. But yeah, that's most of my experience with bug bounties.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. That really, if you submit anything that's medium or lower, there's really not much incentive for a project to like either redeploy a contract or to even fix it, because a lot of mediums are $5,000 or somewhere around that ballpark. It just, the value doesn't make sense for them. I've had a lot of submissions that are impactful, yet they just decide not to fix. Even things in the high range or even critical, I've met a lot of resistance to wanting to fix, and I've had a couple of high critical non-fixes, which is always kind of difficult because you think you're going to get a payout, but you don't at the last second. I had a submission a year and a half ago. This was like September 2022, so it's been a while. It was like a direct theft of funds, a very common like router approval issue where someone approves their tokens to be spent on a router and someone can steal them. And they downgraded that to medium and tried to pay it out and basically said, oh, well, this isn't funds that you're stealing from us. This is funds you're stealing from someone else. So you get a lot of pushback. So bug bounties are so hit and miss. You see a lot of people who are making a lot of money on Immunefi doing bug bounties. And you wonder, like, what do they like? They must be finding some really intense stuff. Because unless it's like an A+, like solid theft of funds, it's a struggle sometimes. Speaking of auditors, that I just brought up trust, and you brought up, I don't know how to say it either, Holiday Waldfee. Who else do you look up to? Yeah, who else do you look up to in the network of auditors these days?
Yeah, I think these are mostly like top guys who are on Twitter. So I really like Milo Truck. He's like, he had some like amazing success on in Code for Arena. I also kind of really like what guys like Pashov and Bytes are doing on more on the business side, since they're actually carrying a lot of trends. You know, I think a lot of engineers just don't find marketing themselves, doing sales, doing business in general. They just don't find it that natural. And it's great that we have like people who are both good at auditing, they're technically strong, but at the same time they know the value of this business side. So they are great. And yeah, I just try to, from time to time, when some guy pops up with an amazing finding, I try to see what's he's doing, or check some of his findings. Obviously there are like legends like 0x52, some other guys as well. But yeah, I just kind of try to keep up the pace with the community. Everything is like progressing so fast. Yeah. So
yeah, that's
cool.
true.
What about you? How do you see other like auditors?
Oh man, yeah, like my views have changed over the years. I used to just really respect like people that were killing it in Code Arena. So there's the OGs like Christophe Michel. Man, he's everyone's inspiration. If you're not familiar, he's the #1 on Code Arena. He made $1 million in like his first year of audits in Code Arena, and now he's a lead security researcher. I think he does most of his stuff with Spearbit these days. Also, Liam Eastwood, he's kind of in that tier of OG wardens for Code Arena, just doing awesome work. Oh man, I hope you can't hear all this. Can you hear that noise? All the.
No. It's just.
Oh, you can't?
No, I can. No, I can hear something, but really, it's not loud. It's not.
Okay, yeah, 'cause I have my microphone set up to where hopefully you don't hear it too much, but dude, I'm like, man, those kids are loud. All right.
Don't worry. I mean, I don't think it will be obvious on the tape. So don't
cool. Yeah, I wish I had a private place. I'm just here in my like lobby in my building. 'Cause, yeah, my child's at home. Yeah, so I really respect the OG people. And also now I have a big respect for Pashov, like you're talking about. He, a lot of people know him as a really great marketer and a great auditor. But his marketing is really great, and he's got a lot of great like educational content out. He posts a lot of stuff on Twitter, that people catch. But I was talking to someone from a project recently, and they were just giving him really high praise on the value of his audits. And I found that to be really cool. Like I hadn't really seen much of his work. I haven't really dug into his actual auditing, but to hear, how top tier he is in auditing and also marketing, it's just a really interesting combination of skill sets there. But yeah, the auditing has kind of changed in terms of just doing raw auditing versus marketing, and kind of we've shifted towards a lot of marketing. Every auditor seems to have an intent to grow their Twitter, and that's pretty healthy, because that's kind of, I guess, where auditing's going. We're kind of seeing a shift from, going back a couple of years, a shift from audits performed by big companies like Certic and Open Zeppelin, Trail of Bits, just all those. And then towards more of a decentralized audit contest, Code Arena got really, really big and became kind of like, I don't know, just I would say a project's first thought for an audit, or up there at least. And then we got really big into solo security researchers last year, just because they provide really great bang for your buck. And now we're seeing a lot of auditors teaming up and making small groups of solo auditors to kind of give great value, but also give, both value and just a great audit process. So it's interesting to see that. Are you trying to team up with other people these days, or are you trying to stay solo for the most part?
So my preferred way of working is within a team. Last year when I started with this whole thing, like in July, obviously I was just starting out, so I couldn't team up with too many people. But for this year, I'll be looking for most of the audits to team up at least with another guy. So it also basically applies to like private audits. I have a private audit in next week, starts on Monday. It's actually with my ex employer, and they're called Future Finance. They're building this cross-chain indices. So for this audit, I team up with Milo and Hola as a part of their Renaissance Labs brand. So we'll be doing that for a month. But yeah, in general, I always prefer to work with someone than just looking at it. I just like to discuss things with other people. I like talking in general, or at least writing. So that's kind of my preferred way of working. I'll be looking to expand it this year. So yeah.
Very cool, man. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how to market yourself as an auditor and what you've done to do that?
Yeah, so there are, I think, quite a few ways to do this, but I think the main point is that you need to stick out from the crowd. So you need to find a way how people are going to know about you. So for some people, this will be constantly winning, contests on Code for Arena and so on, and then they don't need to do much. They can just post these results on Twitter, and they will get subsequent, private audits and leads and so on. Obviously, this is not possible for everyone. So another strategy which was employed heavily last year was constantly like learning in public, sharing like how much you earn, and this proved to be quite like fruitful. But a lot of people started doing it, so it was no longer that original. So I think in this year it's no longer that impressive. It's even like mocked if you're kind of posting how much you have earned for the month and so on. But this was quite a nice marketing tactic to be honest.
Yeah.
My plan actually for this year is most of the successes I had were around cross-chain applications. To be most precise, it was mostly around like layer 0 Stargate integrations. So I kind of decided to completely focus on messaging protocols. So layer 0, Hyperlane, Wormhole, and so on. They all share kind of some similar pain points when protocols are integrating them. There aren't many people that talk about these types of vulnerabilities on Twitter or elsewhere. Mostly people are sharing some kind of a general issues, or they just share issues and bugs they come across. So no one is kind of doing it in a very systemic way. So projects can really see that you're the guy who knows a lot about a specific topic. So that's kind of my marketing strategy for this year, to really go strong on the cross-chain space. I'm planning to build kind of a repository whereby if you're a project that's integrating layer 0, you can check my checklist of issues, of pitfalls, of everything you need to be aware of if you're integrating layer 0. I want to do the same for Wormhole, for other cross-chain projects. And I kind of also want to expand that to some issues in general if you're deploying on multiple chains, because as you know, each chain has some nuances, some differences. Also, I think this is these cross-chain apps, since they require like the whole off-chain infrastructure, like backend servers, relayers who are delivering these messages. I think this is quite misunderstood by a lot of people, especially if you didn't spend too much time building and deploying contracts yourself on the blockchain, setting gas limits, having failed transactions and so on. If you just kind of jump immediately into auditing, you're just checking the business logic. You don't know that much about the other part of the stack. I had some experience with that, especially on my previous job. Like I did a lot of deployments. I also did real testing on mainnet with layer 0, just trying to break the system. So I kind of think that could be my competitive advantage, and at the same time, let's say a marketing opportunity to push, to basically stick out of the crowd. So to generalize this, I mean, my advice for other people would be to pick something you're good at. Maybe you're good at making memes. That's also marketing strategy. Be the best at making memes, and be an average auditor. You will get leads more than a guy who's let's say above average auditor, but no one knows about him. So it's really about picking what you're good at. I think that's kind of the way forward, and not jumping too much. People kind of jump too much from the different, they start learning Rust now, then Cairo, then Solidity, then this and that. So it's very hard to succeed like that. Although, I mean, if you're really brilliant, technically you can master even Rust. I know this guy, Chinese guy, who was top, who earned like $500,000 at ZK Sync. He didn't know Rust, and he found like these nasty bugs in ZK Sync. But I think people need to be aware that not everyone can do this. These are really exceptions. Not to know language and then find some kind of deep-rooted issues. So I think everyone needs to pick what they're good at, and then just drill on that, basically.
Yeah, you just dropped so many awesome gems of information. I'm trying to go back through them in my head. Yeah, like everyone does have something they're really good at, and it really is helpful to identify that and just push it to its limits. And it's also really cool to hear you really digging far into a niche. That's a really good niche too, in my opinion, like cross-chain messaging, because a new chain is popping up like every day. So the demand for cross-chain interactions is just getting like more and more necessary. It's really cool. I also heard of a few people specializing in Uniswap, understanding, to the deepest depths, Uniswap v3 at the time, and now people are already digging into Uniswap v4 and really, really understanding that. And I'm an auditor who never really specialized. I guess I learned as much as I could, but I wish I could go back and take your advice on that, because really understanding something, you will uncover the really deep bugs that most people won't see, because their minds just aren't quite there yet when it comes to like that deep understanding of what's actually going on. like 100 proof. He's another example of a really awesome auditor. He found the Kyber swap bug. This was before their hack. I believe it was a similar like path, like similar vulnerability. And he found it because he went so deep into understanding concentrated liquidity pools, and he understood so much, like so far into it, how you could basically steal all the money just with a deep understanding of how concentrated liquidity works. And now he has amassed this awesome knowledge, and he can apply it to any concentrated liquidity protocol. Or yeah, it's really cool. I really dig that. So I really wish I could go back and figure out a niche, because that seems like the best way forward. It's interesting to hear your marketing strategy is just to be really, really good at something, which I think a lot of people, when they think about marketing, myself included, it's mostly promotional, mostly Twitter, mostly this and that. But yeah, the best marketing is just being really good at what you do. And like I said earlier in this interview, we at GasBot, we hired you to come on to audit our project. And that's specifically because we realized, and you told us, but we were, it was obvious that your cross-chain knowledge was exactly what we needed, because GasBot's a cross-chain gas delivery platform. So just upon talking to you in the first initial conversations, it was obvious that you were already able to help us achieve what we needed to do cross-chain. And yeah, it's exactly what you're saying. It's so easy to market yourself when you just know your stuff. It's really cool, man. Are you a DeFi user? Do you like messing around with crypto? And if so, what's your favorite protocol?
Yeah, I'm kind of guilty guilty here. I probably should be using DeFi more. To be honest, I mostly test stuff when I'm auditing something, or when I was developing, when we had like external integration. I would go on and use the app, but I don't use it, on my quote unquote, free time, just to try out something. So it's mostly targeted, if I don't know, protocol integrates Uniswap v3, I'll probably, as a starting point, maybe just go to the interface, do some transactions, maybe even check transactions, debug transactions on Tenderly if I want to dig a bit deeper. But I wouldn't use it too much in my free time. So
Yeah, that's the answer I get from most auditors. It's
yeah,
that everyone who kind of knows how the sausage is made doesn't want to use it. And I totally understand. And I kind of took that approach when I was building GasBot, like understanding, yeah, you got to keep it as simple as possible, because there's so much room for vulnerabilities, and auditors really know how much room there is for vulnerabilities. We do it all day, every day. Yeah, and DeFi can be a little bit scary, and that's why most auditors don't use it. But auditors at the same time are the ones protecting the landscape. So it's really interesting to hear. Yeah, honestly, DeFi is a lot of fun, but I kind of go into it with a really loose idea of like holding on to my money. I'm like, I just put in little amounts here and there, and don't really do too much stuff, because you don't really know what's coming your way when you like stake a lot of your money and you have your money sitting in a protocol. So many different things can happen. Like I lost like $15,000 last year, not from a hack per se, but just by having my money in a certain stablecoin. I had my money in USDC on Phantom, and that basically went to zero. USDC is supposed to maintain its peg to $1, and it went to zero because of multi-chain. They were a company that's now dissolved. I think they were Chinese, and the Chinese government seized, basically put the founder in jail. I'm not sure. It's hard to know what's true and what's not true. But yeah, because of that, the stablecoin went to like zero, and I lost a ton of money. And it's like that, you just wouldn't expect that, and it happened overnight. Like there's not much you can do when it happens. Yeah, man, DeFi can be a little bit scary. So yeah, I totally understand that, dude.
yeah, it's insane. It's insane. I mean, to be honest, if it's not, I don't know, Uniswap v2 or v3, I'll think twice before I'm going to use it. I was kind of from time to time I swap some tokens, or if I buy something I swap it back to USDC. But yeah, I just mostly use Uniswap v3, revoke the approvals afterwards, and I'm done with it. So yeah, it's scary. You're completely right there. I mean, we spend the whole day looking for issues, for bugs, and then we're supposed to use this while we know that yeah, I mean, the industry is just kind of expanding and developing. Yeah, it's hard to, the standards aren't there yet. So yeah, you can expect basically anything by using these applications.
You do bring up a good point though, because looking back, even from 2022, the standards have changed quite a bit. We still see hacks, but we're seeing much more novel hacks, in my opinion, than the really easily like low-hanging fruit hacks that we were seeing all the time in 2021, 2022, 2023. Even now, there are so many standards, like with Open Zeppelin standards, that projects can just use and build off of, that it leaves a lot less room for vulnerability. And yeah, I'm just happy to see that the stupid errors aren't occurring as much. They still happen sometimes, but not near as much. And yeah, that's good to see. We also have, as auditors, since we don't do too much DeFi stuff, we kind of miss out on the degen stuff and all the tokens like mooning. I kind of miss that. I used to try to invest and hold some tokens I thought would go up, but I lost so much money. I'm just like the worst investor ever. Have you spent any time trying to be an investor?
Not really. I'm kind of not the type of a guy who finds too much like joy in just like degen, going full degen and buying some of these shit coins. Maybe I did buy some when I was starting back in 2021, but that's it. For the past few years, if I'm buying something, then it's Bitcoin or Ethereum, and basically that's it. Maybe some other very popular coin, but even that I would think twice. Maybe if the next bull market comes, I'll change my mind a bit, because now I've been through a bull and a bear market, so I'm more experienced. At least I haven't lost money, so I'm not I don't know if from my own experience, but I see what's the pattern behind these bull and bear markets. So maybe I'll do more degen stuff.
Yeah, with all your money that you're making from contests and solo audits, you'll have plenty of money to ape into a bunch of stuff. That sounds good, dude. All right, I'll end this with one more question, like a personal one. What do you like to do outside of auditing and developing? Like, what do you do on a weekend?
I spend quite a lot of time on this. So even on the weekends, I'm at least working for 3 or 4 hours at minimum. But these days I have a small son who's 2.5 years old. So I just when I'm not working, I try to spend as much time as with him, as possibly I can with him. So I usually do some kind of short trips with my family. Usually go somewhere in the nature, or just go like hiking or something like this. So that's basically it. It's mostly like work and family these days. Unfortunately, it's hard to find time for other things.
Yeah, I feel you, man. Yeah, you're basically my twin in Croatia, because I also have a 2.5-year-old daughter. And yeah, dude, once you become a father, your whole life changes, and you live for family. That's like what you're doing all day, every day for the most part, like on your off time. That's cool, man. And I hear that Croatia is beautiful. So I imagine those hikes are lovely. So I think you're spending your time really well.
Yeah, man. If you come to Europe, it would be great to visit. Yeah, Croatia has everything. It has the mountains, it has the seaside, and it's relatively small. so you can go everywhere like in 2-3 hours. Yeah, it's very
That's
good.
awesome, man. That's wonderful. Hey, brother, thank you so much for coming on. It was awesome talking to you and hearing your perspective on things.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.